There are a million ways to color manga nowadays. Different softwares, different techniques, some are faster, some are more tedious, but the important thing is that you're enjoying what you're doing. I have narrowed down the most common mistakes that I see on manga colorings, and I will show you how to color some tricky parts of panels to make your colorings look more professional and clean. We have a good panel with a good close-up of Nami, where we have elements that are completely covered in black that need recoloring, since they originally are not black, as well as blood and tears to demonstrate some effects to make those look better in manga colorings. Start by setting your panel to the blending mode multiply, so you can color underneath the black and above the white. I usually have a darker background so that I can see where the white bubbles and the frames will go and not color above those. I usually keep my layer for coloring underneath the white bubbles and frames so I do not color outside of the frame. Start coloring the skin with a base flat color and a bold brush. For shading, it is simple to assume with just a soft brush you can shade and it will look clean and even realistic. While that can work for smaller panels where there is not too much detail, for a more close-up shot I think it's a good idea to add extra details on the shading here, since we have a nice clean canvas to shade the face. Use all of the different angles to create thin and precise shading with a bold brush. Then you can take the soft brush with a lighter shade than the one you just used, and you can mix around and blend some of the shading so you have a mix of bold and soft shading so it looks more three-dimensional and cleaner. With that same brush we can add more warmth to the face. Given Nami is crying, we are gonna add some pink blush on her cheeks and nose to get the effect. For the hair, after coloring your base color, you can as well use the airbrush tool, but that works best for smaller panels like I said. But I don't recommend doing this for close-up panels with hair, since it looks flat and it doesn't have any movement or texture to it. So for this, use the same bold brush with a darker shade to create thin strokes across the line art. Once you have these strokes, you may do the same and grab the airbrush tool with a base color to smoothen out the shading and it looks soft and even. For coloring parts that are black, you need to create a new layer above the original panel. This way you can cover the black part. This part gets tricky because you have to be more careful and rely on your own precision. When you are coloring small objects that don't interact with other parts of the drawing, you can shade freely with the airbrush tool, since you may go back and erase across the line art without altering the rest of your coloring, since the other colors are on the layers below. If you use the fill option, it will cover it with the pixels that are nearby, so it will adapt a crooked shape. You may use this technique and then erase over it anyway. However, there might be other parts where you try to fill out, but it will also color other parts that you do not need colored, like the line art. Just make sure your objects are separate from each other so you don't color more than needed. If you are coloring over the black parts and you see there are white lines, which is typically found in clothing, you can use two flat colors so you can identify where the wrinkle of the cloth was shaped, so you can then later draw over it with black. This time, erasing your coloring to reveal the black line art may not work given the white lines underneath. So my recommendation is to draw new black lines and create a new line art. For the blood, you can see the line art is sort of see-through, so you can easily color underneath and it will create this dark scarlet thread of blood. However, the line art kind of makes it way darker. So for this, you could color above the line art once more and even use texturized brushes. In this case, we are using the brush Hearts in a lighter red color and softly adding some random strokes all over the blood parts to create texture. We can then go and add darker shades too. To make the blood look fresh, we can add a new layer above this one and select the blending mode Add. And with a bold thin brush and a lighter red color, create a few shiny parts on the edges of the blood drops and then maybe some blurred shine over with a soft brush. This will make it look fresh and dripping, instead of dry blood on the skin. To make the tears more realistic, you may have noticed that I color underneath as if it were still the skin, the part of the eye like the brown and the white. This is simply because tears are clear, so you should be able to see the skin underneath the tear. However, we will add some shine to make the tear seem fresh and glistening. With the Add blending mode and a soft brush, grab a light blue color and softly spread the brush over the tears. Make sure the skin looks brighter on those areas where the tear is dropping. Then, same as with the blood, grab a thin brush and create bolder lines and circles on the edges to add more shine to the tears. If you want to compare to the standard cartoon tears, I will color the other eye like so. It is a common mistake to color tears blue. I personally think they look kinda out of place and harsh and not really the vibe we're going for. Complete the rest of the tears and even sweat drops with this technique. My favorite part of any coloring is adding highlights. And my absolute favorite technique is adding thin white lines around the edges of the drawing. This really makes it come to life and more 3D. I mix up thin bold lines and soft brush on specific spots of the face. For the thin lines, I go above the line art, but for the blurry highlights, I tend to add a new layer under the line art and above the colors, with the blending mode add. This will limit the highlights and not make the new line art have different shades. If you use the soft brush with the blending mode add above the line art, this is where it becomes really messy and where you can see like the line art and the original artwork is like messy and like you can't really see the artwork anymore, so I tend to do it underneath the line art to avoid this. Continue with the hair, where we will create multiple thin strokes just as we did for the shading, but here only on specific parts of the hair, as we want it to shine on certain parts and not all over the hair, so it looks silky. We add more soft brush highlights on top to blend the lines and it looks shinier. For the impact or action text that we often see in manga, typically in Japanese if not translated, I like to do a white outline to separate it from the rest of the drawing. However, I like to add the blending mode overlay, so that it keeps that white outline but with a little transparency and grabs the color underneath and it doesn't look too harsh. For background, I like to add colors that will match the overall scene. In this case, I am using warm colors such as yellow, red, and orange. So it wouldn't look right if I add any of those three colors as the background. Otherwise, the main coloring will get lost. But adding a green or blue background will not match the scene either. So I tend to keep it on the warmer tones. In this case, I would use a purple shade, leaning towards the pink tones. Instead of having a flat color, my go-to technique is to add yet another layer above the background, under the rest of the colors, and add the blending mode add. I typically go for a color on the temperature desired. In this case, we can use an orange tone, and the blending mode will make it look bright and impactful, as if there was a bright aura around Nami, highlighting that she is the one in the scene talking. Without this glow, the scene looks kind of dull and without impact. This is a big game changer for a small tip. Once you decide on your background color, you can decide on the color for the Japanese text. I usually color these with the same tones as the background, but different shades so they stand out and don't get blended out. But you don't want to have a yellow character, a green background, and then blue text. It will look really messy. You want a nice balance of colors. For these, I suggest creating a brand new layer so you can edit around without altering the rest of the image. I color the base color a nice purple, and then with a soft brush I added a gradient with pink. Then I went back and erased everything around it so I have a nice clean gradient text. I am sure there are easier ways to do this with a select tool, but this is how I color this text. Final optional step, I created a new layer above the color and below the highlights, all under the line art, and selected the blending mode luminosity. Here, with a dark brown color, I shaded some spots boldly. Once you're done, you can play with the opacity and see how strong and dramatic you want the shadows to look like. Add some more glow if needed. An additional step you can do is add a filter to make your drawing warmer, colder, darker, or brighter. In this case, I want it to look warmer, so I will create a layer with an orange color and play with the different blending modes and opacities. And don't forget to add your watermark at the end. So now I'm gonna show you a different technique for panels that have fire or bright colors on them to show you how to make these a little bit cleaner and in a more professional way, because there are typically a lot of mistakes when you try to color these type of panels, so I will show you the right way to do so. I am basically doing the same technique of adding a base color and then mixing a bold shading with the soft brush shading. I will add the glow details of the skin and hair at the very end along with the flames. I want to focus here on how to add the glow reflections whenever we have a panel that has fire, lightning, or any source of strong light directly against the characters. In this case, we have Sanji with blue flames, which I have a tutorial on how to draw those if you'd like to check that out after this video. If you notice, Sanji's suit was usually color black in the manga, but to show really how hot the flames are, it is colored gray around the flame. So that also tells us that you need to add a bright flame and glow around these areas. For color balance, we have Sanji's yellow hair and red outfit, and we know that we will have blue flames. So we will have all three primary colors, which will be very easy to clash and it will look really bad if we don't choose the right background correctly. Since the main focus will be the blue flames, which will be mainly a light cyan color, we would go ahead and add a background within the same color range. I am going for a deep blue purple background, dark enough so that we can see the contrast of the blue flames. This also pairs really nicely with the burgundy suit he's wearing. For the extra panel that I cropped into this scene, which is a panel from earlier on the same chapter, I will use a different color so it doesn't look too boring on the overall coloring. My go-to is always bright purple colors, since they really create a nice contrast. I honestly never recommend green backgrounds, especially like a dark forest green, because they completely wash out your coloring and it just looks really dull and boring, so stay away from green. The only times I would use green is if I'm combining the gradient with yellow or cyan and it's actually a light green, and if the overall drawing or coloring has green elements in it, that's the only reason I would use green, but otherwise I don't think it's a good idea to go for green. This one in particular has 0 green content, so why would we add a green background? Before we move on to the fun part, I am just going to add a new layer with the overlay blending mode to add a little outline on the text so that it is not lost against our dark background. Now it is time to color our fire. There are many ways you can color fire. There are even tools for it. If what you're looking for is a quick way to color panels because you're in a rush or you need to color a lot of pages, then simply go for a flamey brush and get it over with. But I do recommend spending a little more time here. I like to use several brushes to achieve a very dynamic flame. So a couple of rules. Don't treat fire as a gas, where you just run your soft brush over it and get it over with. Don't treat it as a bold item either, where you just add orange or blue or yellow and then just simply move on. Do give fire movement and glow. These are the fundamentals to achieve a perfect flame. On my Blue Flames tutorial, I explained step by step on how to achieve this form. But basically, I go in with a base blue color with the round brush and create bubbles all around on the top of the line art. And then with the same brush as an eraser, I cut it to shape the fire randomly. I even add some extra embers to show movement. I use the Gaussian blur tool with a soft brush and blend some parts of it as well. Adding a new layer above with the blending mode add is a crucial step for fire, and we will also use that to add glow around the character. I usually add a lighter glow in the center of the flame only, and then a more saturated color as the aura of the fire. For the glow on the character, one can simply assume you can add the glow with a soft brush all around where the flame hits. However, just adding a glow with a soft brush randomly all over the place will look messy and it will cover the original line art to a point where you can't even identify the lines anymore. You need to be gentle with the glow and add it softly on the places where the flame reflects. Go with the same saturated blue color, and then with a thin brush, you will add a lighter shade and contour all around the line art, but only on the spots where the fire is being reflected. The combination of a soft brush and bold brush is a must to create depth and definition on your colorings. See how clean the glow looks now? Now it still looks very flat. We need to add a deeper contrast between light and shadow. The darker the shadow on the opposite parts where the flame hits, the brighter our flame looks, and gives off that vibe that it is extremely hot. We will use my go-to technique by adding a new layer with the blending mode luminosity, and grab almost a black color and shade all around those parts I mentioned. You can then play with the opacity to see how dark or how subtle you want these shadows to be. I usually go for 75%. I will move on to the panel on the bottom left. I am going for warmer tones here, since on this part he is fighting against Queen and there is fire and beams everywhere. To balance the scene a little bit more, I usually add a filter above the panel to match the tones. I added a blue screen on top and select the blending mode soft light and lower the opacity to 20% to give it a bit of a cooler tone to match the fire. It's a small detail that makes a big difference. I will finish off the flame from the leg now. There is something you can do to make the flame look more realistic, but it will require to erase the original art. I know, bold move. But just the flame outlines, because if we leave them, they will interfere with our translucent flame. So to have a free space to create your own flames, we need to erase the source flame. However, you can do this after you've used it as a base. Another cool thing you can do is set the opacity lower temporarily for the flame layer, so you can see the original line art and trace above it. You don't really want the flame to cover the entire leg and not know what's underneath, so with a white color, you can trace the leg and foot outline. Once you revert the opacity back to 100%, you will see the foot outline above the flame for a clean coloring of this attack. Pretty cool, right? Now you can freely add glow and embers wherever you wish. I will fast forward this part because the steps are repetitive and I already explained that in the previous panel. And there you have it. This is my go-to technique for coloring manga panels. This is my updated version from my previous coloring manga tutorial that I posted a year ago. I would say this one is more advanced than the one that I created a year ago. You can definitely check that out first if you want a more simple guide on how to color manga, how to start up, if it is your first time coloring manga. This video is just how I am coloring manga today and all the new techniques and tricks that I've learned along the way from coloring chapters week after week. Let me know in the comments if you found this helpful, and if you are coloring manga and you notice that you make some of these mistakes, definitely let me know in the comments and let me know if this helped you a little bit. I would love to see your results. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.